The phone rang at exactly 2:17 a.m., tearing me out of a deep, dreamless sleep in my hotel suite overlooking the neon-lit skyline of Tokyo. I was there to finalize a major international real estate acquisition, the kind of deal that took months of planning and millions of dollars in negotiations. The last person I expected to hear from at that hour was my father. When I saw his name flash on the screen, a tight knot formed in my stomach. "Dad? Is everything okay?" I asked, already bracing myself. "Lena, I have bad news," he said, his voice coated in forced sympathy and something else I couldn't quite ignore, satisfaction. "Your apartment building is on fire. It's all over the news." I shot upright in bed. "What? Which building?" "The Grandview Apartments on 5th Street. You know, that tiny studio you live in. Fire trucks have been there for hours. The whole place looks like it's going up in flames." My hands moved automatically as I grabbed my laptop and opened the local news. Live footage filled the screen, flames licking out of windows, firefighters moving with controlled urgency, red lights flashing against the dark night. "There it is," Dad continued. "I really hope you had renter's insurance. Though honestly, I doubt anything you could afford would cover much. Maybe this is a sign you should stop pretending you can do everything alone and move back home." I stared at the screen for a moment longer, and then I laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not a polite one. I laughed so hard I had to cover my mouth. "Lena," Dad snapped, confused and irritated. "Why are you laughing? This is serious." "Because, Dad," I finally said, still trying to breathe, "that building wasn't just my apartment." There was a pause. "What are you talking about?" "I own it." Silence flooded the line. "You what?" "The Grandview residential complex," I said calmly. "I bought it 18 months ago through Orion Property Group. I own the entire building. All 47 units." "That's impossible," he said sharply. "You live in a studio. You can barely afford rent." "I live in the penthouse," I replied. "And I've never struggled to pay rent, because I've been paying it to myself." The silence on the other end of the call stretched so long I thought the connection had dropped. "Lena," my father finally said, "this isn't funny. I'm trying to help you deal with a crisis." "I know," I replied evenly. "But you should know the facts first." I turned my laptop so I could see multiple live feeds at once. "The fire is contained to the 3rd and 4th floors. The suppression systems are working exactly as designed." "Your suppression systems?" "Yes. My building is insured for $12 million. $12 million, he echoed weakly. That's just for this property. My total real estate portfolio is worth about $420 million. He didn't speak. "Dad?" I asked. "Are you still there?" "You work in customer service," he finally said. "That's what you told us." "I work in customer service," I agreed, "for my own technology company, Orion Technologies. I founded it 6 years ago, along with Orion Property Group." I walked to the window, Tokyo glowing beneath me. In a few hours, I'd be signing documents that would add another $50 million to my holdings. "I need to handle the situation," I said. "We'll talk after." I opened the emergency management system installed across all my properties and connected directly to the fire chief. "Chief Ramirez, this is Lena Carter, owner of the Grandview complex." "Good to hear from you, Ms. Carter," he said. "The fire started in Unit 3B due to a faulty space heater. Damage is limited to 2 units. No injuries. Residents?" Relocated to temporary housing. Your property manager activated your emergency protocol. Estimated damage: about 80,000. Repairs should take 2 weeks. I thanked him and ended the call. My father had heard everything. You were just speaking to the fire chief, he said quietly. When you own property, I replied, you get involved. My father exhaled slowly, like someone trying to steady himself after a shock. Lena, how did this happen? He asked. When did you become all of this? I leaned back against the headboard, staring at the ceiling for a moment. That depends, I said quietly. What do you think I've been doing for the last 6 years? He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was hesitant. Working customer service. Struggling to pay rent. Refusing help because you were too proud to admit you needed it. The words stung, not because they were true, but because they revealed how little he actually knew about my life. That's what you believed, I replied. Not what was real. I took a breath and began from the beginning. 6 years ago, I noticed something while working with different companies. Their customer service systems were outdated, slow, fragmented, inefficient. Businesses were losing customers simply because they couldn't communicate properly. So, he asked, still skeptical. So I built something better, I continued. An AI-enhanced platform that could manage emails, calls, chats, and support tickets in one place. Faster responses. Better outcomes. He went quiet. That platform is now used by more than 4,000 companies worldwide, I said. The licensing fees alone generate around $15 million every year. 15 million, he repeated under his breath. That was just the beginning, I added. I didn't spend it on flashy things. I reinvested. I started buying undervalued properties, buildings no one else wanted. I renovated them, improved infrastructure, added modern systems, and either sold or rented them at market value. But you live so modestly, he said. Your apartment, your clothes, your car. I live intentionally, I corrected. You've only ever seen what I allowed you to see. The guest bathroom. The kitchen. I never showed you the rest because every visit turned into advice about how I should give up and move back home. There was a pause. Then, softly, he said, we just wanted what was best for you. I know, I replied. But you never asked what that looked like to me. You decided I was failing the moment I chose a different path. The line was quiet again, heavier this time, not with disbelief, but with realization. There was a long stretch of silence after I finished explaining everything. I could hear my father breathing on the other end of the line, slow and uneven, as if his mind was struggling to catch up with the reality I had just laid out for him. Lena, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, if even half of what you're saying is true, this changes everything. I know, I replied. That's why I'm going to show you. I opened a secure folder on my laptop and began selecting files, property deeds, business registrations, investment summaries, and bank statements. One by one, I sent them to his phone. The documents represented years of work, nights without sleep, risks taken when no one believed in me. Start with the Grandview files, I said. You'll see my name on the ownership records. Minutes passed. I imagined him sitting at the kitchen table, glasses on, scrolling through each page with growing disbelief. My God, he murmured. These are official. They have to be, I replied calmly. When you operate at this level, everything is audited. Another pause followed, heavier than the last. I see figures here, tens of millions, he said slowly. Multiple properties. Multiple companies. Orion Property Group owns 43 residential and commercial properties across 4 states, I explained. Orion Technologies holds 12 active software patents and licensing contracts with several Fortune 500 companies. His voice cracked. Why didn't we know any of this? You were never really looking, I said gently. Every time I tried to talk about my work, the conversation turned into concern about my finances or suggestions that I move back home and find something stable. Eventually, I stopped trying. Just then, another voice joined the call, soft, confused, and familiar. Lena, my mother asked sleepily. Your father says the strangest things. Something about buildings and millions. It's true, Mom, I said. I own the building that was on fire tonight. And many others. But, you work in customer service, she said. I own a customer service technology company, I replied patiently. It serves over 4,000 businesses worldwide. Silence again, this time from both of them. After several minutes, my mother spoke, her voice trembling. These bank statements, are they real? Yes, I said. I am doing okay. I have been for a long time. I could hear her inhale sharply, followed by quiet tears. In that moment, disbelief gave way to realization, and finally, understanding. 3 days later, I stepped off the long-haul flight from Tokyo, exhaustion mixing with quiet satisfaction. The deal was done. The contracts were signed, and the numbers were real, another $50 million added to my portfolio. While I'd been across the world negotiating boardroom details, the situation back home had resolved itself with equal efficiency. The Grandview complex showed no visible scars from the fire. Repairs were completed ahead of schedule, and every displaced resident had returned to their unit. The incident that my father had called a tragedy had, in reality, been nothing more than a manageable disruption. That weekend, I drove to my parents' house for the first time in nearly 2 years. When I pulled up in my Tesla, my mother stepped outside first, her eyes widening as she took in the sleek lines of the car. This is beautiful, she said softly, running her hand along the door. How long have you had it? About 1.5 years, I replied. It's actually my second one. My father circled the car slowly, shaking his head. We thought you could barely afford rent. I didn't correct him. There was no need anymore. I invited them to dinner that evening, insisting it was my treat. When we arrived at Lumiere, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, my father hesitated at the entrance. Lena, this place is expensive, he whispered. I smiled. I made $3.2 million in Tokyo this week. I promise, dinner won't hurt me. Inside, the maître d' greeted me by name and led us to a private booth overlooking the city skyline. My parents exchanged glances, equal parts disbelief and awe. As we sat down, the conversation shifted from stunned silence to genuine curiosity. For the first time, they weren't questioning my choices or warning me about risk. They were asking real questions. What was Tokyo like? My father asked. What kind of deal were you working on? I told them about the international development project, the partnerships, and the strategy behind expanding globally. My mother listened closely, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. You sound so confident, she said. So sure of yourself. I am, I replied. Because this is what I was meant to do. For the first time, I felt something shift, not just in how they saw me, but in how we spoke to each other. The distance built by years of misunderstanding was finally beginning to close. The following week, I decided it was time to stop explaining my life in words and start showing it instead. On Saturday morning, I picked my parents up and drove them straight to the Grandview complex. As we pulled into the private entrance, my father looked around slowly, recognition dawning on his face. This is really yours," he said, almost to himself. "Yes," I replied. "All of it." I took them through the renovated lobby, past the security desk, and into the private elevator that led directly to the penthouse. When the doors opened, my mother gasped. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline, sunlight flooding the open space. The rooftop garden was visible through the glass doors, lush and peaceful above the noise of the streets below. "We thought you lived in a tiny studio," she whispered. "You thought that because I never showed you this," I said gently. I didn't want every visit to turn into a lecture. From there, I took them to my office building downtown. My executive assistant greeted us warmly, and several team members stopped by to say hello. I introduced my parents to my chief technology officer, my head of acquisitions, and my lead property manager. "Your daughter is one of the most disciplined and strategic leaders I've ever worked with," my CTO told them honestly. "We are lucky to have her." I watched my father's posture change in that moment, his shoulders straightening, pride slowly replacing disbelief. Next, we visited 3 other residential properties I owned. Each one told a different story of transformation, neglected buildings turned into thriving communities. I explained how I evaluated potential acquisitions, how renovation budgets were set, and how long-term value was protected. "You didn't just get lucky," my father said quietly. "You built this." "Yes," I replied. "Brick by brick." As the day went on, their questions shifted. Instead of asking whether I was struggling, they asked how I managed risk, how I chose partners, how I balanced growth with stability. On the drive back, my mother reached for my hand. "We were so afraid you were alone in all of this," she said. "But you're not. You've built an entire world." "That's what I wanted you to see," I said. "Not to impress you, but to be understood." By the time I dropped them off, the disbelief was gone. In its place was something new and fragile, respect. And for the first time, I felt like my parents finally saw me for who I truly was. That evening, we sat together on my rooftop garden as the sun slowly dipped behind the skyline. The city below glowed in shades of gold and amber, and for the first time in years, there was no tension in the air, only quiet understanding. My parents sat side by side on the outdoor sofa, taking in a view they never imagined belonged to their daughter. My mother broke the silence first. "Lena," she asked softly, "what's next for you?" I smiled, already knowing the answer. "International expansion," I said. "I'm looking at opportunities in London, Sydney, and Singapore. The goal is to have Orion operating on 4 continents within the next 5 years." My father let out a slow breath, shaking his head with amazement. "I still can't believe how much we didn't know." "You didn't know because you never asked," I replied gently. "But what matters is that you're asking now." He nodded, his expression serious. "We want to hear about everything from now on. Every project. Every risk. Every win." "I'd like that," I said honestly. "It's easier when your family is cheering instead of worrying." A week later, my parents joined me for meetings with my leadership team. They watched as I discussed strategy, reviewed performance metrics, and approved new acquisitions. There was no doubt left in their eyes, only pride. Afterward, my father pulled me aside. "I owe you an apology," he said. "For years, I thought I was protecting you. In reality, I was doubting you." "I know," I replied. "And I forgive you." As we walked back through the lobby, he added quietly, "That night of the fire, I called because I thought you wouldn't be able to handle bad news. You handled it like a minor inconvenience. Because that's exactly what it was, I said. A problem with a solution. That weekend, I gave them a full tour of my offices and additional properties. They met my managers, my legal team, and my development partners. Each person spoke about my leadership with respect and confidence. My mother listened with tears in her eyes. That night, as they prepared to leave, my father hugged me tightly. "We are proud of you," he said. "We should have said it years ago." As I watched them drive away, I realized something important. The fire that had started as a moment of fear had become a moment of clarity. It didn't just reveal the truth about my success, it rebuilt a relationship I thought I had lost. Sometimes, it takes a crisis to light the way forward. In my case, it lit the path to a future where success and family could finally exist side by side.